As we mark the heroism of the thousands of women who marched on the Union buildings in 1956 to demand an end to past laws, we measure the progress of women in contemporary South Africa on the issues of gender parity and, importantly, the issue of safety. Despite annual Women's Month-focused activities with alarming regularity, we mark the abuses and criminal victimization of women. So what is to be done? How do we substantively address the foundational problems to get to the real empowerment of women? To help us answer the question is Anna Moho Kupeta, who is the executive director of the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation. Anna, good evening to you and welcome. 66 years after that historic resistance, we are still falling short of the commitments made towards women. We are one of the most unsafe places in the world for women and girls, and you believe we should be more determined to challenge the structures that make it so.
Indeed. Good evening. Thank you. 66 years later, we are still nowhere near ensuring that women are safe in South Africa. We are nowhere near towards ensuring that equality in the most practical sense is practicalized for women in South Africa. Policy-wise and legislative-wise, yes, we have made a lot of strides, and we have, on paper, succeeded in ensuring that issues of equality, respect and protection for women is a reality. But many women in communities, in family structures, in family units are not safe. We have seen, we continue to record high levels of sexual and gender-based violence in South Africa. Rape against women, violence against women is at a record high. But we also continue to ensure high levels of inequality in all spheres for women in practical terms, from issues of salary gaps, issues, for instance, of ensuring that women don't carry some of the burdens in society, particularly with COVID-19. We are still nowhere near addressing some of these issues. So we are still talking about the need to address the foundational issues, the structural issues, issues rooted in patriarchal systems, beliefs and normative pervasive attitudes that ensure that women continue to be treated perhaps as second-class citizens, continue to be treated lower than men, continue, for instance, to be victimized because of their womanhood and because of their gender and sex. So these issues need to be addressed. How do we address these foundational issues? We need to have dialogues and really begin to speak to men as some of the perpetrators of this violence. We need to speak to community leaders. We need to speak to all sectors of society, looking at people in different levels towards ensuring that there is a learning and unlearning of some of the beliefs that we've held for so long. We continue again to ensure that we are very much advancing the ideals that the women in 66 years ago sought to address, the issues, for instance, of ensuring that women are safe, ensuring that women, for instance, issues around their security, bodily security and integrity become a reality. So we need these dialogues, but at the same time, we really need institutions to come on board, community members, community structures, family units to come on board. We need social systems to come on board in ensuring that this learning is not only a reality for women only, but also for men, as some of the perpetrators, as some of the people we need whose understanding in order to really address issues of gender equality and women's safety and security.
And if I may get a question in, according to the Global Gender Gap Index 2022, which measures 146 countries, we sit at 92 on economic participation for women. Now, we know that economic independence is cited as a promoting factor for women wanting to leave dysfunctional relationships. How do you see South Africa, with its existing dysfunction on unemployment, tackling this and truly improving the prospects for women?
We definitely need to begin to see some of the policies that we've put in place, policies that advantage women as previously disadvantaged groups really not paying lip service, but really becoming overhauled to ensure that we begin to have women in key positions in society, in government, in other sectors as well. So we still continue to see women in some of your technical, clerical positions, but we need to see women in leadership. We also need to see some form of devolvement, particularly when we speak about issues of gender parity. We are not talking of numbers only, but we are talking about the substantive aspects of it as well, where women are holding key positions of power, decision-making positions in some of these spheres. We need to see, for instance, the advancement of women taking up decision-making even in community sectors as well. So even though we speak of South Africa being at 92%, this is really indicative of the fact that we are still a long way to go. But substantively, we may even be at a much higher risk of actually not meeting some of these targets. So we really need to look at not only the procedural or the parity issues, but also the substantive. What is it that women need to be doing in some of these positions, really for us to speak about addressing issues of gender inequality and meeting some of the targets and some of the international standards that have been set out there, so that we also continue to be one of the leading countries in addressing this and one of the shining beacons for other countries to follow in upholding issues of gender equality and gender decision-making and gender leadership, for instance, ensuring that women are on the forefront of some of these processes.
Sometimes having women, at the helm of key positions may not necessarily be enough. I know we have a ministry led by women, which is responsible for managing the fortunes and prospects of women. How can they do better? How can we focus, by picking out of this myriad, complex challenges facing women and, what's responsible for the progress of women? How do we pick one, stick with it and move the needle?
We need to really start at training, ensuring that women are trained for some of these positions. We need to ensure that education training becomes dedicated in ensuring that women take up these positions and succeed in them. But we also need to ensure that there is budgeting that actually props up women and bring them to the sphere in substantive ways. We also need to ensure that there are specific support circles for women to go up the ladder, to take up these positions. But we really need to do a 360 overhaul if we are really to create lasting change and sustainable change in making sure that we are not just paying lip service to issues of ensuring that women are in these leadership positions. We also need to support them to make sure that they do not fail in these positions, but have all the support they need and they actually succeed in these positions.
Anna Moho Kupeta, thank you very much for talking to us tonight on these really important issues facing women. Anna is the Executive Director at the Center for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation.